Okay, back on the beat on this one. What is this, episode 3 now?
I believe we're on episode 3. We've gotten more pictures for our slideshow, so you're not looking at the same 8 through the course of the fucking hour we're going to be yelling into the void.
Yeah, again, I thought I downloaded more, but apparently some of those disappeared and I don't know where they went. So,
Also to be also to be fair, we didn't expect those videos to take an hour.
yes, to our credit. Anyway, so on this episode, we are talking about how we're going to kind of restructure Karakura Town, and we're kind of going to use that to segue into the next episode, where we restructure on a larger scale. But first on the docket is we're just going to be shifting things around for the Karakura gang, and we're going to be making some fundamental changes to two characters, Chad and Uryu, and then we're going to be taking some other characters, squashing them together, and we're going to be moving some characters back and forth between Soul Society and Karakura Town.
Yep.
Uh,
Like I said in the first episode, we're taking a knife to bleach until it's pretty, and that means that we're going to have to move some pieces around.
yeah. First on the list is Chad, and what are we going to do to him?
Well, the main idea with Chad is he's kind of an interesting character in the original story, but he doesn't do anything, and he kind of gets relegated to barely there, like what happens in a lot of shonens. And we didn't like that, so we're poising Chad to be a little bit more to have a more prominent role in the Karakura gang, which is also itself going to be more prominently in the story. Uh, More specifically, we're also changing Chad to be much more of a strong rival character to Ichigo. Because Ichigo has a lot of half rivals in Bleach, but he needs a good, strong rival.
Someone that's going to stay with him for the entire series and even a little bit past that. So the fundamental changes that we're going to be making to Chad is he's going to be less amicable to Ichigo. Uh, Pretty much from the start. It's not going to be open hostility, but he's going to definitely be more aggressive towards Ichigo. Kind of in a uh post Land of Waves, Sasuke and Naruto. You know?
I'd also say early part 2 of JoJo's Caesar and Joseph.
Yeah, something like that, something like that. Where they're not like gonna murder each other, but they're more friends than enemies, but they still fight a lot. So Chad is going to be far more his own person, and he's not going to be just tied to the main like four people, and he's gonna be having machinations outside of them as well, because that's actually gonna go into the next part in that he's going to be a fullbringer much earlier. And it's going to be established that he's going to be a fullbringer much earlier because we are establishing the fullbringers much earlier.
The way that I kind of see the rewrite Fullbringers is of kind of more of just like an organized gang almost. They're kind of just like street thugs,
Yeah,
but they're using their Fullbrings as stands to kind of get their way, which may be how Ichigo kind of comes up to heads with Chad, who isn't like committing street crime necessarily, but he's probably like out there looking for fights. Chad's going to be a much more openly aggressive character.
he's almost gonna be a Kiryu, where he's like part of the gang, but he's not like actively out committing crimes, but he's definitely street tussling.
Yeah, he just wants a good fight,
Just wants a good fight. Uh,
which Ichigo can provide.
which Ichigo provides in spades, actually. But yeah, so just establish Fullbringers much earlier. Give them the Fullbringer name much earlier, because it's kind of very obvious that when they were actually properly introduced, Kubo kind of had the name as like an afterthought, and kind of explain that introduce that arc into like explain what Chad and Orihime were, in a sense. So it was kind of like very retroactive in that regard. It was just they were introduced as nothing just to explain some previous bits, because that whole arc was nothing.
It was canon filler.
Canon filler. Um, but yeah, so just he's going to be more openly hostile to Ichigo. They are going to be having a much stronger rivalry, and any time that Chad is going to be pulled into a plot, be it Sarate or Hueco Mundo and beyond, it's always going to be on Chad's terms. So Chad is going to be either challenged or slighted or what have you. It's never going to be because Ichigo asks or because he's super hyper invested.
Yeah. Another important thing to note here is that we're going to be throughout this rewrite downscaling people's powers and upscaling people to that downscale.
Yeah.
Chad being one of them. Chad is kind of like there in Bleach. He can fight, I guess. And I didn't like that. I feel like Chad has a really cool power set, and he is severely underutilized.
Yeah. Again, like all you have to do is just see what Chad does pretty much last in the series, and that is he's paired with fucking Ganju.
Paired with fucking Ganju in a fight against literally nothing.
In a fight against the Void, where he is just fighting these random ass stone sand golems that Yalwalk made last. They're not even named Sternritter. They're just golems.
They're just golems. We don't even see how that fight resolves.
Nope, it's just assumed that they did it for some reason.
Yeah, just happened.
And
Which is
that's
double insulting because that's just a retread of what they did in Hueco Mundo, where they did the same fucking thing.
yeah, and that really doesn't do the character justice. So we're gonna try and change that. And he's gonna definitely gonna have a arc all to himself, and that is actually going to be the revised Fullbring arc once we actually get to that episode. Uh, just a real quick spoiler on that episode. We're going to more or less be completely excising Ichigo from that arc. He is not going to be getting a Fullbring, and if he does, actually probably not even an if he does, right? I think we're just going to completely remove him from that.
Yeah, no, just there's no reason for it to be there.
And that's gonna be Chad's own arc all to himself once it actually eventually comes around. But we'll get to that. So, among Ichigo's other friends, we have Uryu, and we're not gonna be changing Uryu too much. We're gonna go to the knobs on his personality and then just turn them a little bit in one direction or the other.
The main idea that we had with Ryu is that we really wanted to focus in on his sense of heritage, his love for his kind of ethnicity, I guess.
Yeah, he's very proud to be a Quincy when we first see him, to the point where like he instigates a fight with a competition rather with Ichigo, like pretty much like almost immediately after finding out that he's a Soul Reaper.
Immediately does that and also puts all of Karakura Town immediately in danger for his own ego.
Yeah, so we're gonna be playing with that a little bit more. And in this particular instance, We are also going to be doing the same thing that we did with Chad, in that we're going to be mentioning his relevant faction much earlier. The not maybe not necessarily mentioning the Vandenreich by name earlier, but definitely we're going to be going like, "Yo, there are other Quincy's," and they
And they
don't.
want to talk to him.
They want to talk to him. They want to see. Do they know the name? Does he know the name of the good Lord? Has he heard the good word?
As I recall it, the term we were using for these early encounters were Quincy Mormons.
Yeah, which is going to be increasingly apt. But again, just introducing those earlier, just so everything has kind of a consistency to it, where nothing's coming out of nowhere. And then for Uryu, he's more or less going to be keeping the same exact power set. We're not going to be changing that at all, but we are going to be changing how he uses it, because he's no longer going to be a kind of mid-range fighter as he's kind of presented in the series. We're actually going to be using his reishi bow a lot more, and like using it as an actual bow for sharpshooting.
Yep, we've turned him into more of a sniper with a side tendency towards laying traps using old Quincy tech.
Yeah, using old Quincy. He's more akin to a hunter, if you will, like an old timey hunter, kind of
And
a.
additionally, this makes a nice three-way rock paper scissors thing between Ichigo, Chad, and Uryu, where Chad is just face fuck, just attack.
He's gonna be Chad Thundercock, where he just face fucks anything in his immediate vicinity, but doesn't have really much range option at all.
Ichigo is a little bit more of a midline fighter. He has Getsuga Tensho. And here's, we haven't talked about this, but I want Ichigo to utilize the fact that his fucking Zanpakuto is more of a flail, really.
Oh yeah. That one technique that we see all of twice, maybe.
Yeah, where they use the bandage and just fucking whirl it around. Severely underutilized. So it would be cool if Ichigo actually used that.
Now
And
you
instead of just Getsuga Tensho.
you haven't. I don't think you played Final Fantasy 15 at all, but
I have not.
there's a great analogy to what I would imagine his fighting style would be, and it's of actually the main character Noctis, where he is a very very agile mid-range fighter, and he uses his weapon. He can kind of warp to his weapons. So if he throws his weapon at a vantage point, he can then teleport to that weapon and then just kind of sit on the vantage point out of danger, so he can assess the situation while things can't reach him. And then he can jump back into battle from any point, and then he could just throw his sword again and warp to it, and then just immediately right back into battle, and kind of use that to his advantage as kind of like a
Okay, I'm fine.
uh, uh, sneak attack almost. So
Mhm.
probably for Ichigo, it would be more about like using the sword as a tool to get around the battlefield, and kind of almost area denial in that respect.
Yeah, he could do something like that. Uh, because like, despite the fact that he has a fucking big ass cleaver, Ichigo is played out most of the series to be more of a speed fighter.
Which is not actually like shown many times at all.
We get a lot of it in the fight with Byakuya,
Yeah.
and then it kind of then I think Kubo just forgets and then just makes Ichigo Chad McHammer SWAT like Kenpachi.
Yeah, kind of. Again, he kind of brings it back for the Fullbring arc, where his Fullbring is entirely about speed, which
Yeah.
by that time I had completely forgotten that he was even supposed to be a speed fighter because he just face fucks stuff with Getsuga Tensho and then just beats them with his beat stick when that doesn't
Yeah.
work.
We also kind of get flavors of that in the when he finally comes back to the fight in the Blood War arc, where he is able to zip around so fast that Candace can't even keep up with him.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Oh. But TLDR, like Ichigo would be, he's strong, but he's not as strong as Chad, and he's fast and has a little bit of range, but not as much as Uru.
Yeah, his biggest thing would be his very versatile sword.
Yes,
And
he's very he has a lot more on his feet momentum. Like
yeah,
he can change up his approach very quickly.
yeah. But yeah, just turning Uryu into more of a trap based range fighter, and then having him always be at range, and never letting opponents get within that range.
Unless he knew absolutely he could kill them.
Yeah. So that's gonna shake up some of his fights later on in the series. So like his one against Mayuri. Because in our revised edition, he would not ever be anywhere near Mayuri in that instance, and probably Mayuri would have to shake up his tactics as well, because Mayuri
Yeah,
can't.
that kind of just makes that already really good fight even more interesting.
Yeah, because
And
then Mayuri
then
can't
my
face fuck with his science.
but he can go to Bankai and then just AoE,
That's true.
which is one of Uryu's worst weaknesses. He can't deal with people who just level the battlefield or otherwise apply a status he can't just run away from.
Correct.
But yeah.
Okay. So that's Uryu. And then next in my notes we have Tatsuki Hime. And we already touched a little bit on this in the first, or was it the second? I can't remember.
I think it was the second.
Yes, I think it was the second episode where we are just going to be completely not ditching Orihime, but we're going to be taking Tatsuki and Orihime and smashing them together into a character named Tatsuki. Um,
She has the personality and probably most of the appearance of Tatsuki.
yeah,
Though, like, we're not super focused on like visual things, but like whatever you need to have there. The personality of Tatsuki, the power set of Orihime, and kind of fuse them into a more solid love interest for Ichigo, and have Ichigo like actually kind of reciprocate that instead of just ignoring it for the entire series.
have Ichigo reciprocate literally anything.
Yeah.
But again, because she's a full brain user, that's going to be established more early. And probably soon after Chad gets his whole thing introduced properly, um, it'll probably circle back around to like, oh yeah, Tatsuki, you're a full bringer as well, and this is so on and so forth how you work.
I think that was one of the things we were planning on doing. Actually, was having Chad approach Tatsuki because she would engage a hollow at some point and learn how she has her powers. Probably in the same kind of my brother's a hollow situation we had with Orihime, but changed
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. And soon afterwards, we get a hey, we got word on the street, you're a full bringer. And then Ichigo comes in and says, hey, don't talk to my girl. And then Tatsuki being her is like, whose girl? And then Super goes to Chad, and that's the arc.
Yeah. But yeah, just again establishing earlier, smushing those two characters together, and have them bounce around more often. Because it felt like Kubo had a lot of half ideas for Tatsuki and a lot of full ideas for Orihime that didn't really pan out.
Yeah.
So cutting another character from the series just to give another character to have more room to grow.
Yeah. Speaking of cutting characters, we didn't really put this in our notes, but it goes without saying that Kago, I think his name is, and then the other guy, and then the Giga lesbian. Much as I love them, they're gonna have to be relegated to utterly background characters.
Utterly background characters, maybe 2 to 3 sentences exchanged between them at max, and like again, they're just utterly superfluous, and it kind of pulls us along with more promised kind of story that we never actually get, because it was implied after the Eisen arc and a little bit into the Blood War arc that they might never see Ichigo again. And that was again, he was kind of delivering that to these characters to that Ichigo hasn't personally seen in a very long time, and that frankly by that time in the manga, I'd almost forgotten who they were. So
Yeah,
it kind of felt artificial of like building these people up as friends when like they haven't even spoken to each other like on screen in a very long time.
doubling up on that, I don't think any of them showed up in the final chapter where we're like, here they are 20 years later. We don't even see Tatsuki
Nope.
or Keigo or the other guy. And like to illustrate our point, I don't even know the other guy's name.
Yep.
It's not the one voiced by Yuri Lowenthal.
Yeah. But yeah, just ditching them more or less completely. They could still be there, but like again, just not. Let's not expend emotional energy on these characters. That's not going to pay off in any way, shape, or form. So let's just drop them.
Yep.
Um, and then to fill that void, that Kubo kind of did this anyway, a little bit. We are going to be after the relevant arc. We are going to be shifting Rukia and Renji over to Karakura Town because
Yep.
they
They're
they they feel like townies more than anything, and they bounce off of each other far better than those random schmuck characters ever did. So either official posts or like official Shinigami of the area or like whatever, however you want to justify that they're just getting transferred over to Karakura Town's protection. Just they're going to be permanent residents, and then we don't have to deal with the whole back and forth between them and Soul Society and that whole gap that exists there. So we're just shifting them over to Karakura Town.
Yep. Renji can probably be expanded on a little bit. He can actually probably be more. He can kind of fill the role that Chad was in, and actually maybe flesh him out a little more.
Yeah.
Where he's a kind of a half rival to Ichigo, but he's more amicably a friend. Like they probably have a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Rukia, probably one of the most unchanged characters because she requires very little.
Yeah, she's already in a good place throughout the entire series, and actually one of the stronger characters that Kubo has written at all.
Very solid.
So again, just very little touching on her part. Um, and then we can go into the next characters that need a little bit of touching. And we're gonna touch very little on these characters, um, because they're going to end up being very little by the end of this. And that is Urahara and Yoruichi. Now, it was established that Urahara was this batshit insane kind of tinkerer dude that lives in Karakura Town. And that's kind of the role that he's going to end up staying in. Because by the
He's
time we end the series, he's very much like this almost omniscient character who has a backup plan upon backup plans for everything.
he's
And
kind of a he's kind of a fucking responsive. He's kind of like Aizen in response.
yeah. So we are going to just actually keep him in Karakura Town, where he can still participate a little bit in the invasion of Sarate, but gonna scale him back a little bit more. And
He's probably
with
gonna be more of a lieutenant level fighter.
yeah, he's gonna be a more level fighter, and he's not even really gonna be going that deep into those fights anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
he's
and
kind of there to be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
yeah, just there to exist and to pass on certain knowledges.
Much the same with Yoruichi, who's just a freaking weirdo. She would be just someone who exists in the world. Because like that's kind of just the role she's in. She just exists. She's just there.
So yeah, we're just gonna drag her along for the ride. She's gonna still have her connections to Soul Society in the form of Soifon and whatever else she had, but she's just gonna stay very firmly in Karakura Town and just kind of be the quirky fighter for for Karakura Town, and gonna have a much more diminished role. And I do believe that finally brings us to our final character in the form of Karin. Now, at least for the first half of the series, we're going to keep Karin's involvement almost the same. In
She's
the.
not,
Good.
she's gonna be kind. She's gonna fulfill the same role of little sister who is there and kind of beats the shit out of Ichigo because he needs a head tap in a while, so every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that she should probably just like be aware of like Rukia and Renji and who they are. And these are hollows. They can kill you.
Mm-hmm. Kind of play up her spiritual awareness that they hinted at throughout certain points in the series, and then actually, maybe pay that off instead of not at all, Kubo. So we're going to be getting her involved much more, and by much more, I mean like maybe twice as much. But there will come a certain point in the series where she gets far, far, far more involved. But that's for another episode. But yeah, just play up her spiritual awareness and actually have her participate in certain key moments. Definitely earlier rather than later on this one, because I don't think we're going to bring her at all into the Soul Society invasion arc, because at that point she would have no place.
No, she'd be much more of an actual townie.
Yeah. But
But actually keep her involved. She would be in the loop. Yuzu, same side she is. She's just totally unaware.
yep.
But Karin would be in the loop.
But I do believe that brings this discussion to a close. And I believe next episode we are going to talk about the much more butchering of a group of people next time with how we're going to restructure Soul Society. We are going to take a knife to that bitch.
So far, our character casualty is at 1 for Orihime. We have many more people who are casualties, as we'll say.
Yep. A lot of people gonna die. 2 kids gonna die tonight. All right.
And one old
And one whole guy. See you next episode.